Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Tuesday. Seriously. It's only Tuesday and I couldn't remember it. Oh, for some reason I thought it was Wednesday. I'm not sure why. Anyway, we are on Tuesday, day 5 of shadow work, and we have more benefits of shadow work, self knowledge, and better relationships. Now, I read through this already, and I'm telling you, I am probably going to struggle through this. So, um, let's just jump right in. All right. Our shadow, so self knowledge. This one's for self knowledge. Our shadow aspects have both light and dark sides to them. We just choose to label them as all dark and try to repress them. While we may initially fear that these aspects of ourselves are truly dark, accessing the lighter sides of these traits can make us more creative and help us grow. And also better relationships. The second benefit of shadow work is that we hurt ourselves and others less. When we do not acknowledge our shadow, we possess a distorted view of the world, one that is based on trying to maintain our self concept, our sense of who we are. This puts us at risk of projecting our shadow onto other people, hurting our relationships in the process. I talked about this the other day. So you always notice how my ears get itchy when this starts. It's like just chatter in my ear. But anyways, I mean that's just what it feels like. But hmm, let's just break this down. Break it down. Let's just sorry, I'm in the mood today. Just commented on a friend's post and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm back. I'm back. Snarkasm and all. I mean not in a mean way. That dry wit and sarcasm. I run on dry wit and sarcasm and a little bit of coffee. Anyways, yeah. Let's keep going. So, self knowledge. Our shadow aspects have both light and dark sides to them. We just choose to label them as all dark and try to repress them. Um, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I've been talking about shadow work like it is all the dark stuff, right? And I think it depends on the person. I mean, this comes from Psychology Today and Better Living Today. So, this was written by a psychologist. So, I mean, we want to give them the credit where their credit is due because, they've done all this work. Carl Jung kind of set the foundation, people ran with it. And, of course, as ideas grow, so do the findings in all of these things. But I think a lot of it really does depend on the person. But I do believe that there is that balance, and that's what I have been talking about balancing that light and dark side. And I think I have, and I say I think because I'm not sure that was my intention consciously, but subconsciously I think my intention has always been to make people understand that the balance of the shadow is the light and dark. So I don't know if I'm BSing there or if I actually it's actually what I meant, but I can tie it into that because that's what this is saying, that we have to balance that shadow. We have to bring that light and dark. And it's like when I talked about the inner floof, my inner floof. um I still consider her my shadow me, but she's growing now, right? She's got growth, she's got this, she's got that, because she's not this little tiny child inside of me knee jerking at everything and getting triggered by everything. And that's not to put down anyone who does get triggered or who does knee jerk, because well, knee jerking and triggering is basically the same thing. But um but it's to help people understand that when we do heal this part of ourselves, that's that self knowledge, right? And when it can improve our relationships as well. So that inner floof inside of me, good morning Sammy, really is what is the balance of light and dark in me. So and that doesn't mean that when I get mad it's because my inner floof is mad. No, I mean, she's basically an integrated part of me now. She's not this separate entity that I've, compartmentalized for a good chunk of my life and just kind of ignored and sat in the corner. So, and just kind of left her in the dark room in the corner. No, there's full light, windows are open, all that good stuff inside of there. But, I do have to keep that balance between me and her. So, maybe the light is where I'm at, and maybe the shadow is, what the inner floof is taking care of. So I hope that didn't get too confusing, but we have to balance. You can even think of it as your soul. You have to think of your soul. People will say, oh, I'm so broken, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm just in pain, I'm emotional or physical, I'm hurting. And that's understandable. And I just read a post from one of my Facebook friends, and I loved it because they're all like, you know what, I'm just taking a me day today. I love all of you, but I ain't got time for anyone else's BS right now because I got my own to deal with. And I love that because that's self-care. Now a lot of people might say, oh well, geez, because no, it's self-care, and that's what we need to do. This person knows and has identified the fact that they are, they're trying to pour from an empty cup right now, and so they're balancing that shadow and that light, and that's exactly what it is. That's our shadow self. It's light and dark. So let's see. While we may initially fear that these aspects of ourselves are truly dark, accessing the lighter sides of these traits can make us more creative and help us grow. You know, um, when we tap into this dark stuff, I mean, when you tap into your pain, you tap into this, that, or the other. You see it in TV shows where people will just, or even on true crime shows, right? Where, you see somebody has drawn something totally horrible, and that's the kind of a shadow thing that they're hiding. But, I mean, take musicians, right? Many of them write from experience. Many of them write from experience. And we get down on them for that, right? Like we're like, yeah, I love this song, and then someone comes along that may not be a fan. Oh yeah, well, you know what? Nobody should be airing their dirty laundry. Well, if you're not airing your dirty laundry, I'm sorry, but you're just listening to classical music, which is probably still based on people's emotions. We don't feel music because that person who wrote it was dead inside, or maybe they were. We feel that music because we're feeling what they were putting into it. We're feeling that passion that went into it. Whether, and you know what? No, let me rephrase that. Maybe they were dead inside. We don't know where some of the ideas for some of this music came from. We don't know that someone wasn't having such a bad day that they decided to write something great. We don't know that Beethoven wasn't having a bad day when he wrote Ode to Joy, which is like 40 minutes of music. And a lot of people don't know that there's like four parts to that song, but most of the people just hear the last part. And I'm telling you, you got to listen to the whole thing, because the whole thing, when you hit that last part, that last section, it's like, wow, it blows your mind more. I'm that nerd that will totally blast classical music in my car. I don't care. I blast anything in my car. I love movie soundtracks. I mean, my dad, um, I don't know how my phone ended up with priority in the car, in my dad's car, but he was like, this doesn't sound like my music. But it was all over the place, right? I mean, a lot of the music I grew up with, a lot of music that my angsty teens, you know, and of course, movie soundtracks, classical music. And that's, for me, been the balance of my shadow side, music and movies. But a lot of it has been, I never really thought about this, but it's funny because Sammy's on today. And Sammy, she was born the day the music died, like legit. All right. So, oh, I'm sorry. I just kind of threw that out there. I apologize. Um, anyway, if you know, you know. But I'm not going to elaborate because oops. But no, but seriously, she is a music fanatic, and I love it. I love it. And, I never really put any stock into the fact that when I am feeling icky, I mean, I even have a playlist for my moods, like all my moods. I have a playlist for all my moods. And then I just have one that's my whim for the month. I literally change the name of it every month because it's the one playlist where I add and subtract. So you're like, what does this all have to do with shadow? It has everything to do with shadow. It has everything to do with allowing ourselves to feel, right? It's allowing ourselves to feel. It's being creative when we tap into that light or the dark side of that shadow or the balance. I mean, if you follow a musician, you know when they're hurting and you know when they're feeling great, right? You know when they're feeling on top of the world because you know their patterns. You know, um I'm sorry. I know, Sammy. I know, Sammy. Sorry. I keep saying it on here too. So, oh, I don't know. I know Mercury retrograde just ended, but you got to watch out for that tail whip. But yeah, it keeps saying trying to reconnect here. So, for anybody that watches this later, you won't notice because it still records everything. But if you're here live, it's either got a slow connection or blah blah blah. So, anyways, maybe she didn't hear that part. I accidentally revealed the day you were born, not the date, just the phrase that goes with it. So I am sorry. I am sorry. So, anyways, here we again. While we may initially fear that these aspects of ourselves are truly dark, accessing the lighter sides of these traits can make us more creative and help us grow. If you have pain, tap into it. If you are an artist, draw it. If you are a writer, write it. If you are a composer, compose it. Don't just, or you don't have to do anything with it at all, but you do have to get it up and out. You have to get it out of you one way or another. I'm just saying that if you are someone who has that talent, then use it. It doesn't mean the world has to hear it. It could just be for you, and that's okay. And maybe you meet somebody and say, hey, I wrote this. Maybe you'll want to read it. Sammy actually read a story I wrote that was really cathartic for me. And I'm still not sure what I want to do with it. I thought about turning it into a play, but I had really tapped into my shadow side of myself without even realizing it. And it literally, this story, it was like an 80-page story, just came out of me. It just came out of me. And it felt so good after it came out of me. And I rarely let people read my stuff, but I let Sammy read this. And you know she the interesting thing was it wasn't like, oh, that was really good or blah blah blah. She said to me, I bet that was very healing for you, because she knows me and she knows a lot of the stuff that I've been through. And it felt good because I realized in that moment that I had acknowledged my shadow side, but I turned it into something. And like I said, that doesn't mean you have to share it with the world. It can just be for you. It doesn't have to be for everybody. All right. But whatever you do, whether are a creative person, you got to get it up and out. You've got to get that pain up and out. That's what working on the shadow side, that's what balancing it is. It's taking all the stuff that is tipping the scales of your shadow side and saying, no, I got to get rid of that so I can balance the light and dark again. All right. Because we're all light and dark. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a dark side. We're all light and dark. I mean, you know, I don't know anybody that is happy 100% of the time. I mean, yeah, they might have string a bunch of days together, but then they might have that, couple moments where it's just like, oh my God, and they get all dramatic. I get dramatic. Sibling sent me a meme once, and I was telling her this the other day that I was so offended by it, when I first got it, because it says, I'll get over it, but I just have to be dramatic about it first. And I was like, really? Is that what you think of me? But we were talking about it the other day, and I told her, I said, I remember when you first sent that to me, but since I've gone through my shadow work and since I've gone through all the self-love, I told her, I said, yeah, I just embrace that now. I'm a Capricorn. Okay. I will get over it, but I got to be dramatic about it first. But, you know, seriously. So, anyways, let's move on. Better relationships. The second benefit of shadow work is that we hurt ourselves and others less. When we do not acknowledge our shadow, we possess a distorted view of the world, one that is based on trying to maintain our self-concept, our sense of who we are. This puts us at risk of projecting our shadow onto other people, hurting our relationships in the process. It really can. I had a note in here that it can affect our mental health. Whether you have a dinged up mental health or not, you have a mental health. Okay. I mean, it's your, it's part of your health. Just when you have a dinged up mental health, which means when you have a mental illness, which I hate the word mental illness. Um, you know, when you have a dinged up mental health, it's just a little bit more of a struggle. All right. So, but I put in here on my notes for mental health, self-love, and body positivity. These are some examples of how our distorted view of ourselves, that this shadow that just kind of poofs out, when it's in imbalance. And yeah, Sammy says that we are never 100% happy and light. No, we're not. I mean, I like to think that I'm a fun person and outgoing. Sibling tells me I have charisma, and I giggle a lot. I can't help it. But yeah, I mean, there are times when it's just kind of like, And the interesting thing is that I don't always notice it, but other people do. You're really quiet today. Are you okay? Even my dad is starting to notice, right? I mean, I've been here for about 3 months now as he's been getting better, and he's getting better. So to all of you who have been sending all the good stuff, thank you. But yeah, he was just like, "Are you okay today?" And I'm like, "Why? What do you mean?" And I didn't even notice. And he's all, "Well, you're just really quiet today." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I didn't think anyone noticed. My dad did." So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just having one of those days." And it was nice because he doesn't always understand depression, but he says, "I'm sorry to hear that. And I hope you feel better." And I'm like, "Thanks." But the thing is having done all the shadow work, having done all the self-love work, I'm starting to notice when these things happen. So I'm not spiraling as much because I'm catching it and I'm taking care of it in that moment, whether it's just, plopping down mentally and just going, "You know what? Just got to ride this out." Or going out and doing something, even standing in the sunlight for about 10 minutes, without trying to melt. But we're not quite into melting season yet, but we're getting there. I know, poor Sammy. I always tell her, "Oh, it's so humid here." Yeah, our humidity is not the same as her humidity. My hair would die where she's at. Um, yeah, see, it's amazing what other people notice. People who care do notice, I think. No, Sammy, 100%. I mean, I don't even think, I wouldn't even put I think on there. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that care that don't notice, and those are the people that I think are going through their own stuff, today. But when other people tend to notice, it is a real sign of affection because it's someone saying, "Hey, you know what, there's something," and you might even be picking up on the vibe. You just may not be noticing. Sammy, my hair is permanently dead, LOL. Just as a side note, okay, because Sammy lives in the South, and oh my God, the South and Hawaii have humidity that does not end in the summer. It is 100% ew. But Hawaii has trade winds. Where she lives does not. And well, I mean, I'm sure they get breezes. I'm sure you guys get breezes, right? I don't know much about the area she lives. I'm trying not to give any more away, but I remember, just as a side note, and I'm gonna tie this into shadow work, okay? When I was a teenager, I was finally starting to find myself after my dad and I had that great talk. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I want to feel like this. I want to feel like that. I want to do this. But I still wasn't okay with having curly hair. I mean, up until I hit puberty, I mean, I'm half Asian, okay? So up until I hit puberty, I had straight bone ass hair, straight black hair. And then as I got older, it started getting lighter, which I didn't mind. And it got curly when I hit puberty. So I hated it. I hated it because it was like, you go through this thing and all of a sudden it's like, poof, you got curly hair. And it's just like, really? But I did. And, I already had enough self esteem issues. So I remember being in Hawaii trying to straighten my hair. This is before they had flat irons that everybody could afford. Okay. So I was trying to use a curling iron to straighten my hair. I shit you not. I walk outside, poof, my hair just curled right back up. And I'm just like, and my mom's just looking at me like, "I don't know why you wasted an hour in there doing that." It's like, I know. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know. I figured, hey, my hair would cooperate. And that's when I realized that when you have curly hair, for those of you who are struggling with it, your hair owns you. You do not own your hair. Now, right now, I own my hair, but it's not summer yet. So, and we can product the hell out of our hair if we have to. In which case, we're just taming the hair. But yeah, usually in the summer, I just let my curls go because, it feels like it's just a lost cause. So anyways, Sammy says it's breezy today, but not so much in summer. Yeah, no. You know what? I remember one time going to Comic-Con and a friend told me, I said, oh my God, it's so humid. It was humid for San Diego, okay, because that's where Comic-Con in the summer is. They were from Texas. And he just laughed. He just legit laughed. He's just like, really? This is not humidity. But the next year, my friend, he's a really good friend of mine. I met him through Bestie. But he's, Bestie and he had a thing for a while. But but yeah, the next year, when my friend came back out, like his older sibling and I and my other friend Sean, we're all standing there. We're all, man, it's humid, and he's just like, yeah, now this is humidity. It was like 84% humidity, and it's just like, So, what does this have to do with shadow work? Who knows? Who knows? But let's tie it in, okay? Um, let's tie it in. How can I tie it in? Our self, you know, our self reflection. I mean, there was a point when I hated myself so much that I was trying to go back to this kid that I'm not even sure I liked then. Because I did struggle with so much as a child. I did compartmentalize so much. And when we don't face that shadow, it says right here, the second benefit of shadow work is that we hurt ourselves and others less. When we stop hurting ourselves less, we are going to hurt others less. And that kind of goes back to a lesson a couple days ago where we resent the traits that we see in other people because we're seeing the traits that we hold in ourselves in them. And when they act on those traits, we're more resentful because we feel like, well, how come they get to do it and I don't? And that can hurt our relationships. I'm very, very lucky that older sibling did not give up on me. Older sibling is the kind of person that, you FAFO with her too much, and she is going to walk away. She will cut you out. It takes a while, but she will. And I was always afraid that when I lost my ever loving mind, that she was just going to either kick me out or just walk away and disown me. And she is my soul sister. And, I don't think I could have handled that because it was the one person who truly saw what was happening to me because she'd been through her own mental health stuff. She was a person with a dinged up mental health that recognized somebody else who was struggling to come to terms with the fact that they had a dinged up mental health. And in case any of you guys are wondering, well, why are you sharing her story? Older sibling has given me full access to her life, and she doesn't mind me sharing because she knows. But she did, and she had mental health issues when in a time where we really didn't deal with it. We threw it in the closet. We just kind of ignored it because, there was a certain way you had to live, so it was really, really frowned upon then. And, at the time that she was growing up too, I mean, psychology, even though it had been decades old, was still really kind of in its infancy. It's not like it is now where we're more open, we're finding, different diagnosis, we're people are reevaluating what a diagnosis is, terms are being changed. Manic depressive, I think, is now bipolar, and we try to give it prettier names, right? So, because I mean, there is so much stigma on mental health. And whether you have a diagnosed dinged up mental health or not, or you're just that person that suffers from what I call the common people blues, and I don't mean common people in a bad way. Everybody who has a dinged up mental health would love to be a common person. We would love to not have to deal with this every day. Have to check in with ourselves to make sure that, okay, where am I at today? Or have people notice, oh, are you not doing that great today? No, yeah. But when, going back to older sibling and I, there would be times when Mount Shelsuvius would just explode over the dumbest things, really the dumbest things. It's like I would take everything so personally. I would be so offended. Even my dad and I were talking the other night, and I told him, I said, well, how come when I say that you think I'm serious? He said, oh, because you are. I'm like, no. I said, that's not me anymore. And I told him, I said, that's not me anymore. And I get where he's coming from because that was me for so long. I did take things so personally because I felt like everything was an affront to me. Like the world, I didn't think the world revolved around me, but I felt the world was against me, even when it wasn't. I mean, 90% of the world could give two shits about me because they don't know me, they don't care about me. I'm just another speck on the planet, right? But I was lucky that Sibling didn't give up on me. And she worked hard to get my mental health into a good place. And I really do owe her everything. Bestie saved my life in high school. Sibling has kept me alive. And then I'm lucky because I have people like Sammy and baby Sibling and Bestie. And, sometimes my dad, who I can turn to when I am falling apart, when I can just say, yeah, I'm not doing so great today, blah, blah, blah. But, just send good vibes, you know, or people that check in with one another. And I got to be better at checking in with people. I am so bad at that. I am so bad at that. But I talk the talk, but I don't always walk the walk. So I apologize. But Laura does rock. And so do you, Muddy. You do too. I mean, God, I've known Sammy for at least 20 years now. And I can't, it's funny. I was evaluating all my friendships the other night, laying in bed trying to fall asleep. And I was thinking, I'd be sad if I didn't have Sammy in my life. Like legit sad. Okay. I mean, she's my mutt twin all the way down to the curly hair. So, which, I mean, we have some funny conversations about how wild our hair gets. And, it's, like his ponytail season, which is summer. But, that aside, these are the relationships you want to keep around you. These are the people that understand your shadow. But what about the other kind of relationship? What about the romantic relationships? What about the people that you're just getting to know that don't know you the way, you or your people know you? So you start hiding all these things. I can't sit there and tell you, hey, be honest with everybody on date number 2. No, okay. I mean, that could scare people away. Of course, you might be weeding out the bad ones, but don't take my advice on that because I have not dated in like 20 something years. And I shit you not, I'm literally writing a book right now about, my experience of being single for so long and everything I've discovered along the way. And I don't know if it's going to be something that's supposed to be put out there or if it's just something for me, but it is legit being started in this book. I'm just bypassing the computer on this one. I figure I'm going to write it all down, then I'll stick it in the computer. But I was thinking about that. And I have a lot of people that come to me because as a single person, we have a better, oh God, what's the term I'm looking for? We're a little more objective when we're looking from the outside in. We're not comparing our current relationship with somebody else's. So people kind of look to us like, well, what do you think? I mean, I've had people come to me that just say, and I'll tell them, are you in a place where you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want me to tell you what I think? And I let them choose. But before I didn't. Before I did the shadow work, I couldn't do that. I used to just say, well, I think blah, 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 because I'm coming from a place where I'm so sad that I'm single and lonely, really, that, you just be like, well, how can you do that? How can you say that? How can you be like this? But as I did the shadow work, and I'm realizing this now, and I don't want to share the people that have come to me because, they've all found my advice very objective, and I'm grateful, But the point I'm making is the person that has come to me, that has asked me for insight, before I used to just give my opinion. Because that was the shadow side of me going, hey, you know what? What the fuck? Seriously? What the hell is wrong with you? You have a relationship, blah, 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 and you forget all the other stuff. You got to remember communication. You have to remember compromise. You have to remember, quality time together. You have to remember all of these things. And so it's not that, they didn't find, what I said objective. It was just my approach was because I was hurting inside. Oh, thanks, Sammy. She said that would be an interesting insight, the book. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm only on page 2 because I just started literally yesterday at Starbucks. But yeah, it's been gnawing at me. And I think it's because, okay, I'm going to share something with a lot of you that may not know this. My last boyfriend, this is so embarrassing. I don't know why, but it is. I'm basically a nun, okay? A nun who wants to fall in love. I'm a hopeless romantic. And you have to understand that being a hopeless romantic, the last 25 years have been difficult. That's right. My boyfriend and I broke up on March 5th, 2000. And I have been single in every way possible since. I have not dated. That's something that I'm putting in the book. And, it's just, uh, to be honest with you, the last time I dated was 1996 when I met him, and we were together for about almost 4 years. We lived together. That's actually how we met. We were roommates. But, yeah, it kind of chokes me up a little bit because, um, the Catholic girl in me, I'm very much a lapsed Catholic. I'm more spiritual than religious, but the the lapsed Catholic in me just said, God, please let the next person that comes into my life be the one, because I'd been through so many bad relationships, and I know this show is going on longer than it probably should be. I spent so much time talking about everything else, but to be honest with you, a lot of that needed the shadow work. A lot of that needed the shadow work. I'm not sure that I would have been functional in a relationship before the last couple of years. And even in the last couple of years, I've still been working on this. But the thing is, now I think I just hide behind it. And I'm being honest. I think I hide behind my weight. I think I hide behind, um, finding self love and finding shadow, doing my shadow work, because I've done all these things. I've done all these things, but I can tell you that even though I am a hopeless romantic, even though I still have hopes that I will fall in love one day and find that person, I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I'm content. I'm happy. Being single is not as bad as I made it out to be all those years. The book literally starts out, my whole goal is the book starts out like this: how it started, and in the end, how it's going. And I'm going to give you a little insight. It's going okay. I mean, things could be better. Things could be better, obviously. But, I need a little more balance in my life. I do. But I am in such a place now that I've never been before because of shadow work. I have better relationships with my family. The ones that I don't, it's because I set boundaries. And they're not easy boundaries, they're hard boundaries. But when I had to set some of these boundaries, I'm in my 40s. I don't have time for childish behavior. Okay? I don't have time to deal with people who don't want to help themselves, because I was in the midst of trying to fix whatever was broken inside of me. It's like that Japanese art, right? They don't, when something breaks, they don't throw it away. They put it back together, but the glue or whatever they use has gold in it. It shows the veins of where the scars were, and it becomes something so complete. And now people are kind of making an art out of it, but that aside, I can't remember what it's called. Is it kintsugi? I apologize if I got that wrong, but look it up. It's just the Japanese art of putting things back together with gold, and it's to show that even though something broke us, we came back more beautiful, scars and all. There's nothing wrong with scars. I've had a physical scar for almost my entire life. I was 3 years old when I got my heart surgery scar, and you know, I mean, I've lived with it my whole life. I've never known anything different. But and it's never bothered me. But what's bothered me are all the broken pieces inside, all the scars that were left behind that I was so ashamed of, that I'm not ashamed of anymore. And see, and yeah, Sammy says, I love the Japanese art with gold that shows the beauty in the broken. Oh, I love that. I really love that. The beauty in the broken. And it is. That's where, you dip into that self-knowledge, and you find that creativity. I mean, somebody broke something a long time ago and created this art and said, you know what? I'm going to put this back together in a way that shows that even though something broke me, I put myself back together in the most beautiful way. We'll to paraphrase Sammy, we're beautifully broken and we're healing. And that's what shadow work does. Shadow work gives us the opportunity to go within ourselves and glue ourselves back together with that gold. To show ourselves how resilient we are, to show ourselves what we're made of. Um, it says here, our shadow, we possess a distorted view of the world, one that is based on trying to maintain our self-concept, our sense of who we are. This puts us at risk of projecting our shadow onto other people, hurting our relationships in the process. And this is exactly what we're talking about. When we don't learn how to put ourselves back together, if we just lay there in pieces, someone's going to step on those pieces, right? We've all broken a glass, and we've all either stepped on a piece of glass that we couldn't find, or we've cut ourselves trying to pick up the glass. Never mind. That's a story for another day. It's just like, seriously? Even when you're not picking up a jagged part, somehow I always manage to get cut. But anyway, it does put us at risk of projecting our shadow onto other people. That's why sometimes relationships are hard, because you might get two broken people in the same relationship, and two things can happen. Either one, they're going to come together and heal one another, or they're going to do this their whole relationship. And I've seen that happen. I've seen broken people come together and make something beautiful out of their lives. And I've seen broken people come together who won't acknowledge that, they have shadow aspects, who, one person, can't be the bigger person one time, and they just go at it all the time until it ends. And then when it ends, it usually doesn't end very pretty. And sometimes there's children involved, which is even worse. A poor shadow can affect our body positivity, thick or thin. Thick or thin. It doesn't matter if you're plus size or size 0. Okay? There are people who are a size 0 that don't feel good enough about themselves, who hate themselves, who become anorexic or bulimic. There are people who are plus size, like me, who are emotional eaters because we're trying to fill this void in this hole. When I started doing my shadow work again with this series, my eating got better. I've been emotionally eating like a crazy woman the last couple of months. And it's just kind of like, I got to stop. And I know it. I see it when I'm about to eat something. It's like, stop. But I can't. And it's not that I can't. It's because I don't make myself do it. Because I'm trying to fill that hole. Because I don't feel lovable. Because I don't feel like I'm good enough for somebody. Because I've been single for so long that I'm afraid that if somebody ever finds that out, they're just going to be like, yeah, you're probably just broken and I don't want to deal with you. And what can I do? What can I do? But self-love and shadow work go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. And in order for us to find that self-love and to be able to pour from a cup that's full, so that we don't splash our lava onto everybody else, our molten lava onto everybody else, it takes a balance. And that's balancing the light and shadow. That's balancing this pain inside of us with the healing that is required. Sometimes we live with a trauma for so long, and the bad habits that we've gained from them for so long, that we don't know how to be different. One of the hardest parts for me during shadow work was realizing that I held on to traits because they were comfortable. And change is very uncomfortable, especially for me. Change is hard for me. But over the last year, I've really worked on it. I've learned to go with the flow. There's a great scene in the Big Bang Theory. It's the second to the last episode of the series, and two of the main characters were talking, and he's like, "Well, I don't like change. Change is blah blah blah." And she's like, "Well, you realize over the last X amount of years since we met, you've changed." And when we stop to think about that, when we stop to think how far we've come from where we started, we realize we have changed. And so all this little change that happens around us that might feel big and explosive is just a part of life. The clock changes every minute, every second, every millisecond, depending on what kind of watch you have. You know, the sky changes every day. I mean, those same clouds over in the distance weren't the same clouds that were there yesterday. And you may think, well, that's dumb. No, it's not. It's change. And once we understand that change is a part of healing, it makes it a little bit easier to grab onto and hold on to so that we can get through the shadow work, so that we can balance that light and dark side of ourselves. All right, so I'm going to read this back through and then I'm going to let you go. I know this was a long one, but I think we got where we needed to go. So let's see. Self-knowledge. Our shadow aspects have both light and dark sides to them. We just choose to label them as all dark and try to repress them. While we may initially fear that these aspects of ourselves are truly dark, accessing the lighter sides of these traits can make us more creative and help us grow. Oh, good morning, older sibling. So, oh, yeah, see, this is what Sammy says. The fact that things change is the only thing that doesn't change. Yes. In fact, that actually sounds like what they said on the show. The fact that things change is the only thing that doesn't change. And that is so true. That is so true. Right? Everything is always changing. I mean, we're not this big, right? We've grown. We're not that infant that came flying out of our mom. You know, now that older sibling's on, I have to tell you, she hit the doctor when she was born. He slapped her bottom to make her cry and she just whacked him. And I was like, no way. And she's like, yeah, it was like a reflex. But I was like, yeah. Her parents were probably like, okay, this one's gonna be. That's probably why, you know, that's why her and I are only children, because it's all our parents can handle. So, anyways, better relationships. The second benefit of shadow work is that we hurt ourselves and others less. When we do not acknowledge our shadow, we possess a distorted view of the world through either mental illness, lack of self-love, or lack of body positivity, just to name a few. One that is based on trying to maintain our self-concept or our sense of who we are. This puts us at risk of projecting our shadow onto other people, hurting our relationships in the process. So I don't know if older sibling can see this, but Sammy says hello. So yeah, and you know, so older sibling, the one that just came on, Laura, she's the one that I was talking about earlier. And yeah, she saved my life. Or I should say she's kept me alive. You know, there's been a lot of, you know, earth angels that have been in my life. And I'm not saying this because Sammy's on, but Sammy's one of them. You know, I mean, we don't call each other mutt twins because we hate each other. We call each other mutt twins because, you know, we're almost like family. So, you know, I mean, I really do think of her as one of my best friends. So, yeah. So that's that. You know, older sibling came on just in time for the end of the show. But anyways, these are the benefits of shadow work. All right. Having self-knowledge about yourself can really, really help you pour from a full cup, which will really, really help your relationship. And